Welcome back. All right, so I'm wearing my Texas Stars jersey in this one as we are up to the Central Division and who may or may not get taken by the Central. And again, some fascinating choices here. We'll go through this in alphabetical order. And yes, Arizona. And I haven't looked yet to see whether or not on the Pacific one people will be like, where's Arizona? Arizona's now in the Central. So, yeah, who did Arizona protect? Well, Krause, Dvorak, Garland, Keller, Kessel, Larson, Schmaltz, all protected. I'm a little bit surprised by Larson, but I get it. On the blue line, Capobianco, Chychrun, Ekman Larson, and in net, they protected Kemper. I'm a little bit surprised at Capobianco, too, to be honest. So, who did they not protect? Well, Michael Bunting. I'm mildly surprised they didn't protect, because between now and the 21st, Seattle can sit down and talk contract with him, right? He's a UFA. Now, again, it's much like the Ross Colton situation in the Atlantic Division video I just did, where it's a small sample size, but Bunting looked pretty good. So if you're Seattle, it might be a good option, for a guy who might be able to pop a few goals for you. Christian Fischer, Tyler Pitlick. Pitlick's a useful bottom six guy. On the blue line, you've got Jason Demers, Ilya Lyubushkin. Lyubushkin might be an okay pickup as well. And Jordan Osterley. And, of course, the acquired yesterday, Joseph Kozanosh is the goaltender of note from the Arizona Coyotes. Arizona's not going to lose anybody major in this expansion draft. And they're one of those teams that I don't think has been too stressed about how this is going to work out. Even if, let's say, Bunting goes to Seattle, Arizona has some very good young talent up front, and I think they'll be just fine. Chicago, interesting. Eyebrow raising, even as a Canuck fan. So they protected Borgstrom, makes sense. DeBrincat, Hagel, Kampf kind of surprised me a little bit. Kane, Strome kind of surprised me too. Taves, Jones on the blue line. Caleb Jones, just acquired from the Oilers. Murphy and Stillman was protected as well. And then net they did protect Lankinen because you have to. And then who they exposed, Ryan Carpenter, is out there. He, of course, played in Vegas. He kind of knows how the expansion thing works. Might be decent pickup. But Brett Connolly's out there. His contract might not be to Seattle's liking. And Adam Gaudette. Now, if Adam Gaudette ends up being the pick from Chicago, and I'm leaning towards that, wouldn't that be interesting? That after the Canucks lose Gaudette to Chicago and they pick up Highmore, if we end up in a situation where neither Gaudette nor Highmore are protected from the expansion draft, and Gaudette ends up going from Chicago to Seattle, meaning that Chicago essentially would end up coming out with just not losing anything else to Seattle in that deal. So yeah, that's to me that's interesting. Now on the blue line they have Calvin DeHaan, who might be a decent pickup for Seattle, Nikita Zadorov, who I believe is an RFA, but again you can negotiate with them. And then in net, Malcolm Subban, who has some experience dealing with brand new teams and going through that situation. But again, for Chicago, I don't think they're losing anything they're not willing to lose. Colorado, their protected list, of course, was not really leaked out yesterday, but the fact they exposed Landeskog is huge, because now for the next 3 days, Ron Francis can call him and have a little chat. So the protected list for Colorado are as follows. Burakovsky's been protected. Jost, Kadri, McKinnon, Nichushkin, O'Connor, and Rantanen. So by exposing Landeskog, they protect, I would think, Jost or O'Connor. On the blue line, it's Gerard, Makar, and Taves. So they didn't want to do 4 and 4 to protect Graves. Graves ends up in New Jersey, and so they only protect 3 defensemen in return. Grubauer being on the protected means that there's got to be a contract worked out with Grubauer. They just haven't announced it yet. It's not like him showing up at the All-Star game and participating in those festivities at baseball tells you anything other than he's staying in Colorado. On the exposed list, Matt Calvert, an interesting one. Belmar's on the list too, but Belmar at this stage in his career, I can't see him being picked up by an expansion team. JT Compher. Jonas Donskoy. Donskoy might be an excellent pickup by Seattle if they grabbed him. And of course, again, they will work the phones and see if either Brandon Saad or Gabriel Landeskog would be interested in coming over. Goal scoring is always a challenge for a first-year team. Usually you can put together some good defense and some good goaltending. Goal scorers, Donskoy, Landeskog, Saad, guys who can put the puck in that, guys who can play offensively. Key guys. So I would think one of them goes. On the blue line, you got Eric Johnson, who waived his no-movement clause. You've got Jacob McDonald, who had excellent stats for Colorado when he was given a chance to play this year. Might have turned some heads. And in net, Devin Dubnyk, who I know is a UFA. But it's interesting, right? Dallas. Dallas has protected the following: Ben, Faksa, Gurianov, Hintz, Pavelski, Radulov, and Sagan up front. On the blue line, it's Heiskanen, Klingberg, and Lundell, and in net, it's Hudobin. So they moved Dickinson yesterday to Vancouver because they weren't going to protect him. And it is bare bones what they've left out there for Seattle. Noteworthy, Blake Como. I would have put Cogliano, but at this stage in his career, I can't see him being taken by an expansion team. On the blue line, Jamie Alexiak, who I know is a UFA, but again, I think they sit down and at least talk to him. And Mark Pesic. And then in that, you got Ben Bishop, who was exposed. There's not a lot there. There's L'Esperance. There's some other guys, Dowling. But Dallas isn't going to lose anybody major. They're pretty well protected, so they do have a lot of no-movement clauses. Bishop waived his, but it really doesn't matter. They're not losing anything major off their roster. Over to Minnesota. Minnesota, Eric Sinek, Fiala, Foligno, Greenway, Hartman, Sturm protected. So in losing themselves the contracts of Parise and Suter, they've helped themselves out. They're able to protect Sturm, Zuccarello. On the blue line, you got Brodin, Dumba, and Spurgeon have all been protected. So by moving on from Suter, they are able to protect Dumba. And in net, they protected Talbot. Now, that's the one that's interesting, because I probably would have leaned the other direction. I probably would have protected Kakkonen, but again, Capo Kakkonen might be a good pickup for Seattle, right? There's a lot of goaltending options. I guarantee you that would be the biggest headache if you're trying to put together a team is, okay, these are three good goaltenders. That's our team. Wait a second. No, we'll swap this guy. No. Why don't we swap that guy? Okay, so if we go back to, I don't know. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see which goalies they pick. Nick Bonino is amongst the exposed up front. Sorry for the pausing. It's allergies. Marcus Johansen up front. It is an interesting one in that, they pick him up last offseason, and now he's exposed. Victor Rask, who was made to look very good this year by Kaprizov, but I can't see, unless Kaprizov's going to end up in Seattle, which is not going to happen. Rask is going to stay. Ian Cole on the blue line, and Carson Soucy. Soucy may very well be a front runner to get taken, but why not Kakkonen? Kakkonen looked pretty darn good. I know his stats by the end of the year had kind of come down, but why not? Young, inexpensive goaltender who's already shown he can play in the NHL. I think he would be a decent pickup. And I think Seattle will take a lot of goaltenders. And by a lot, I mean probably 5. I could see 5 goaltenders for Seattle. And then obviously they're not going to keep all 5. But take 5 and then trade out the guys they don't plan on keeping around. You'd have some takers. There's going to be some teams that need goaltending in the offseason. Nashville. Nashville is the only team in the league that protected 3 forwards. They did it. This was a rumor from Pierre LeBrun that they were going to do 3 forwards, 5 defensemen. They did it. The only Forsberg, Jeannot, and Cunnin are the 3 forwards. Yeah. If I had said a year ago, okay, so the expansion list, the only forwards that are going to be protected are Forsberg, Jeannot, and Cunnin. And on the blue line, they're not going to need to protect Ellis because they're going to trade him to Philly. People would have said I was crazy. On the blue line, they protected Carrier, so clearly they really like Alexander Carrier. Ekholm, Fabro, Yossi, and Myers. So Philippe Myers gets acquired from Philly, and he's protected. And Saros, of course, is the goaltender they're protecting. So who's not protected? Well, up front, there's a lot of options here if you're Seattle. Nick Cousins, Matt Duchene, Michael Granlund, who, of course, he'll probably end up returning to Nashville next year. I believe he's UFA. Rocco Grimaldi, who was my pick back the last time I did it. But I don't know. Ryan Johansen, it's an expensive contract, isn't it? Does that put them off? Probably. Calle Yarncroke is an interesting one, as well as Colton Sissons. They didn't protect Sissons. He's got that long-term extension, but, I mean, it's a reasonable cap hit. So, do you pass on Sissons if you're Seattle? Mark Borowiecki is the highlight from the blue line, as they've protected almost their entire blue line. Connor Ingram in net. So there was a lot of hype about Connor Ingram, and when Nashville picked him up, there was a lot of, hey, this guy's, he's got a really solid future. It hasn't happened for him yet. Maybe Seattle sees something there. Again, they've done a lot of advanced scouting. Seattle's done a ton of advanced scouting. So let's go to St. Louis. In St. Louis, they've protected Barbashev. So that was true. They protected Barbashev. And they exposed Tarasenko. Kyrie's protected, of course. O'Reilly, Perron, Shen, Sundqvist, Thomas are the forwards. On the blue line, it's Falk, Krug, and Parayko. Because, yeah. And Bennington in net. So, yeah, there really wasn't much choice there. It's not like you're going to expose Falk or Krug or Parayko. None of those three. So, who was exposed? Mike Hoffman's an interesting one. And I know he's UFA as well. You at least give him a call. For the same reason I outlined for other teams, you want guys who can score goals. Zach Sanford is an interesting one as well. And Jaden Schwartz, who's also headed to UFA status. And, of course, Vlad Tarasenko. But on the blue line, you've got Vince Dunn and Jake Wallman. I like Wallman. I do. I think Wallman's a good defenseman. And Vince Dunn, they've been trying to move him this year. They weren't able to move him. Seattle might help him out, might take him off their hands. And Ville Husso is the unprotected goaltender for St. Louis. So, I don't think Tarasenko's the attractive option here. I think Dunn is. And I think of the other players, I might be more interested in Zach Sanford. Just because you're looking at cost and you're looking at what you're getting with that cost. And I don't know with Tarasenko that you're getting full value for that contract. And that $7.5 million you can spend elsewhere in the offseason. So I don't think Tarasenko's the pick from St. Louis. And I know that's going to be the one that a lot of people think goes. I don't think he goes, though. So we get to Winnipeg. Winnipeg protected Andrew Kopp. Good job, guys. So, Connor, Kopp, Dubois, Ehlers, Lowry, Scheifele, and Wheeler. I'm a little bit surprised at Blake Wheeler, but not really. There are others who might have said, hey, why don't you expose Wheeler and protect Appleton? I'm not 100% surprised they protected Wheeler. It would have been outside the box thinking to leave Wheeler out there and protect Appleton. I don't think Wheeler gets taken by Seattle. I do think Appleton does, but again, it's one of those things people argue about with general managers and being old-fashioned, right? On the blue line, you got Morrissey, Pionk, and Stanley are all exposed, or all protected, sorry. And Hellebuck, of course, is protected as well. So up front, you've got Mason Appleton. I would think the most likely to end up going to Seattle. Jensen Harkins. He's an interesting forward that's kind of got the Swiss Army knife capability to him, that he can kind of play anywhere in your lineup. Nathan Beaulieu on the blue line. Dylan DeMello, very good defensive defenseman. Might be a good pickup if they don't like Appleton. Sami Niku is a guy who's been waiting for his breakthrough. Does Seattle give that to him? And Laurent Brossoit in net. So, as I did in the last video, put together a goalie combo here. Ben Bishop, Kaapo Kähkönen. That's not a bad duo 1-2 punch down in net. You've also got Dubnyk there. You got Subban. There are some options. And Brossoit. All right. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.